So, so the first item on the agenda is McMahon is going to catch us up on all the progress so far, results from the public session. So.
First item's minutes. First item's minutes. Oh, but we don't have a quorum.
True, good point.
So never mind.
So anyway, procedural stuff. So I think, please,
Go right ahead.
yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Laura, are you gonna start off?
Oh,
Yes, certainly.
we talked last month.
Yeah, so we're gonna start off by going over this handout that you have in front of you. So I think there's some extra here. Make sure everyone has a copy.
Thank you.
So the purpose of this handout is just to demonstrate how far we've been able to come in this process. You've been with us since the fall, and as you can see with number 1, we started out looking at existing conditions, collecting data on safety and existing infrastructure in town, and the purpose of this handout isn't so that you can read all these images, they're all things we had at the public meeting. Just to show you where we started with looking at the existing conditions for walking and biking in Watertown, and then going through the public process of having meetings with this committee, the steering committee, and then the public meeting that we held in January, plus the community survey. And so you should have all received the public feedback summary via email, and that provided an overview of some of the major findings from the public outreach process so far. And so basically, combining that data collection with the feedback we've gotten from this group and the general public, we were able to develop the vision for the bike ped plan, which we also went over with this group in a previous meeting. And so all of that is now bringing us to the draft recommendations, which are in the bottom left corner of the sheet. So you can see sort of the flow of the plan process into recommendations, which is really exciting because the recommendations, I think, are what you've all been waiting to think about and put on paper to see the different types of bicycle and pedestrian connections that can exist in Watertown and where those might be filling in gaps in the existing network to make it safer for everyone in either mode all throughout town. And so that's going to be the focus of the meeting tonight, is thinking more about the draft recommendations that we've put together so far, which are really based on a lot of the feedback that we heard at the public meeting and through the survey. So if you did have a chance to look through that document, you should see some themes repeated from there in the recommendations that we'll present to you tonight. And so the way that we're going to look at these recommendations is in 2 groups. So we'll have one group focused on infrastructure recommendations, and that'll be looking at a map and to see the proposed improvements in the network. And then the second group will look at different recommendations for maintenance, enforcement, policies, programs, and funding, and those are related to the second side of the handout. And so that will be more of an open discussion of what these different topics mean for the plan and getting your opinions on what the priorities you think are in terms of these recommendations. And so everyone will get to participate in both groups. We'll do each group for about 20 minutes. So I think that's the bulk of our meeting agenda for tonight, unless anyone has any overall questions or something they'd like to share before we get into those groups.
We're really getting into the plan itself. So we're getting close to, we're working towards that final deliverable within our schedule that we'll put together the draft plan by the spring for the community to review with this committee, the steering committee, and a public meeting. So we're at that point of, we've filled in, as Natalie said, going through this flow chart process. So the recommendations that we're going to talk about tonight are draft preliminary. You are the first testing ground for this. So what we really want to know from you tonight is, does this jibe with what you think we've heard so far through the community process? And the meetings that we've had with you, are we missing something? Is there something else that we could say a different way, something else to be considered? So it's that on the ground, and then it's going to be more the policy side of it. And then taking all that information from you tonight, we will start putting together that draft plan and then work with Laura to identify areas that we still need to complete, anything that we might need to change course on, those types of things, and then lay out our plan to get a complete draft pulled together for review.
So, as we move towards the plan, is it safe to assume it's gonna be structured somewhat like this? Like, you've broken out into sort of 6 categories, so is that kind of what the approach is gonna be?
It could be, we're looking for your feedback on that too, but the flip side of this, the first box says, see the map in group 1, so that's more the like map-based in location, looking at connections that Natalie will facilitate. And then the other 5 boxes are these other titles, and we can talk through in that group of how we came up with these sort of buckets. But there's so much information already available in Watertown, lots of regulations you already have in place, ordinances, good work you've done in your master plan, your design guidelines. So we were trying to put this in a way that made sense to people, and so we want your feedback on that too. Like, does this resonate with you, or are you, is there some other way that we can present this? Because this will be fleshed out into far more detail. This is just to kind of get us started of, do we have the right, are we on the right track?
So sorry to interrupt, so are you kind of saying that it's not only gonna be a standalone document, it's gonna work with all the other documentation requirements? Is that what you're trying to say? So it's gonna kind of work with the comprehensive plan, it's gonna kind of work with all of these other documents, or?
That's the idea behind it, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. So if there's a recommendation, for example, when we're going through existing policies and programs, if you have something that's already in place, there isn't a reason to come up with something new. What can be done to integrate bicycling and walking within those other ordinances or regulations. So yes, we're trying to dovetail those, because our charge as part of your consultant team is don't redo the Complete Streets program, don't redo our downtown parking plan. Go through that, pull out what is relevant to this, and so the two should be able, the existing and this new document should be able to kind of dovetail together. Other questions?
Did we want,
I had a question. On their C recommendations list and map in group 1, was there a map attached that I missed?
So there wasn't, but we have a map tonight
Okay.
that we'll look at.
All right, good, thank you very
it was
much.
hard to send it in a way that you could see it.
Yeah, I figured as much, but I
Yeah.
thought. anything's
Did we
possible.
want to just spend 5 minutes talking about the public meeting? I thought last time that we talked that some people had some comments about the public meeting that they didn't have a chance to convey. No? Okay.
Was there anything, and you received the summary in advance, you know it was a lot of information to go through.
That was very helpful.
Good. Was there anything that surprised people that we heard or documented? Your survey response was excellent, so kudos to your networks of reaching out with that.
How many did you get?
800 and, it's in here,
That's excellent.
820 something?
120, you said?
Like 800.
Woo!
Yeah.
That's
But
very good.
it said you took the information only from people who completed it, right? That was still a lot, 570
Yeah,
something.
so 574 were complete responses. There were 821 total responses, so that included some that were incomplete, but the trends across both sets of data were generally similar, yeah.
Good. Are we gonna go through this, or?
The summary?
The
what was
recommendation.
that?
Or-
And,
I think they would like to move on to the recommendations unless
Right.
there's people wanted to talk about the summary, which I don't even know if we have here. Oh, here it is. Yes, I do have it. So if people, that's more time for the recommendations if people don't have comments.
Is there
I
time
think
to
you're,
talk about this?
yeah,
so
so
that's gonna be the group, we have 2 groups that will be 1 group.
Okay.
Yep,
And
so
then
you'll have-
this, right?
Yeah,
That's the
other
map,
group.
is the other group.
Okay.
so we can
How,
get into groups.
how does the committee, we have members of the public that are here, and so we'll divide into the total number, all right.
But they've been attending well along.
Great, thank you. I'm not trying, excuse me, I'm not trying to be different communities have different rules of the committee talks and then the public can talk, and I just wanna make sure everybody understands the ground rules. So yes, the more the merrier, that definitely help us get more information, so thank you.
All right, so I think we'll call this table over here Group 1, which will be with the map, and then Group 2 will be the more like policy enforcement maintenance recommendations on this side.
So this one over here.
Yep, so the back of the handout with the boxes over here.
And then we're gonna switch
And
after
this
20
one
minutes.
Over there.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
But after 20 minutes, we'll switch, so you get a turn in each one. We just thought it would be easier to talk about it in a smaller
You're right,
group
it
setting.
is. Okay.
Yeah, so there's about
Half
5
and half.
people
How about,
at each, yeah.
can we do this, half and half? Would that be easier?
So are we dividing the committee members in half and have the public?
Yeah. Well, one of you had to, that's what you have.
We don't all go to the same
One, two, three, 5, 6, 7. Do we have eight of us tonight?
Marie's doing all the work herself.
Yeah. So maybe do 4 and 4, and then we switch?
Yes.
Well, and then,
Then us.
Yep.
and then-
Oh,
Yeah, you guys go wherever you want.
Then you pick where you
Yeah,
want to
go
go.
wherever you want.
I really saw.
Yeah. We did. So if we could just reconvene for a moment.
Just one more minute before these guys go.
Yeah. We got great input tonight on some of the policies, programs, part of it that I helped facilitate is, we got a lot of great ideas and other things that we can look into, but it sounded generally like we had the right kind of categories and thinking. Any surprises for you?
I'd say in general, there was a lot of agreement on what the priorities are in terms of filling in missing links, thinking about the north-south connectivity, different types of connectivity through development areas. So I think we got some good feedback on some new ideas, but overall it seems like, everyone liked what they saw and in support of creating this more connected network through town.
So we're happy that we seem to be on the right track. That gives us a good direction to go forward. So we'll follow up with Laura on next steps. As we talked about at the beginning, we're going to start putting the plan together and working with Laura to identify what else needs to be done and then set up our meeting schedule from there.
Okay, so you're not sure what month you'll be back here for the final? It probably would be the final.
Yeah, it would
One
be,
more.
right. So let's figure out where else we need your input and things that you can review in the interim so that we have, because we've done a lot of the back and forth, and so we want to make sure that when we come back to meet with you, it's very specific of what you need from us as your consultant team. So we may have you set the agenda and tell us what you need.
Okay.
The other way around.
And there was one person who emailed some feedback that, you have it, very good. Here, I'll just give it to you because.
Wonderful. Great. All right.
Laura, is anything that's coming out of this germane to the budget process we're now in, or is this gonna be in next year's budget realistically?
I mean, there's some things that are in this budget already that I've been working on with Steve. And will you type up these notes and send them to us, and then I'll send them around, and if we have any feedback, if people can email me, and I'll put it together and send it to these guys.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just gonna cover this one very quickly. I think Laura passed out a schedule for meetings this coming year.
It's attached to the agenda.
Yeah, so I just asked that people take it home and look it over, and then next month we'll finalize it. Does that sound good? All right. Another thing that was passed out, the next item on the agenda has to do with development projects, 85 Walnut Street. I also passed around a letter that Ethan put together that I put my name on. Ethan did all the work, I put my name on it. And so that's been sent to the zoning board. So the other thing about 85 Walnut Street was the zoning board moved it from the February agenda to the March agenda. So the meeting is March 25th, and I think we want to be there to make our point about Walnut Street. Snow removal initiatives.
What time is the Walnut meeting?
Well, it starts at 7, but I don't know where it is on the agenda. But, you know, if you go to the calendar, the town website, the calendar, the agenda should be attached to that.
Okay, no, I just had it down for 6.
No, it's
Before we dive into the rest, should we just go ahead and approve the minutes from last month?
I'm sorry?
Should we approve the minutes from last month?
We should.
Should we
Yeah.
approve the minutes?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Thank you. That means we have to start all over again. Do I have to go over here? Am I gonna be in jail if I? I want to jump over the bike share grant. That's kind of, I think, in your bailiwick.
Oh, okay.
It's good news.
We're working on it, but of course, right away, there's roadblocks. Yeah, we were granted $100,000, or actually $80,000, the town's putting in 20, for 5 bike docks, bike stations with 10 bikes each. They have to be connected by like a third of a mile, no more than a third of a mile apart, and they have to connect to Cambridge, most likely a third of a mile also. So there are gonna be sort of in the east Watertown, primarily. Well, we could be a third of a mile from Alston, or we could be a third of a mile from Cambridge, but we have to be a third of a mile to an existing station. I'm not sure where the nearest station in Alston is, do you know?
New Balance, right? Guest Street?
Yeah, so we would either be a third of a mile from that, or a third of a mile from, there's one pretty close to, like in the Star Market, Sofra area.
Okay.
So, up on Mount Auburn Street.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's never simple, that's all I can say. We got a pretty good deal for this this is supposed to be a 2-year contract. But then after that, they gave us this contract extension language that was not very favorable, so everybody's like, wow, are we gonna get into this thing knowing that in 2 years, we're not gonna be able to afford to keep it? It was very crazy, a lot of money. So we're working on that, the 4 communities are working together to say, no, we're not gonna agree to that now. And we have to do an RFP, so it's not gonna, it's not gonna be in like April, it'll probably be more like summer than spring.
What's the RFP for?
Because it's state money, we can't just award it to them.
But they're the only providers.
Well, there actually are other providers, they're the only provider if we wanna connect.
Oh, Jesus.
So, in reality, unless we want to build our own network.
Yeah, that is crazy, but anyway, it is moving forward, but it's not moving fast.
What are the 4 communities?
Newton, Arlington, Chelsea, and Watertown. Newton, Watertown, Arlington, and Chelsea. And Revere is also interested, although they didn't get grant funds. They didn't apply with us. So,
All
what
right.
else is there?
Anything else?
I don't have anything else unless people have questions.
Right, snow removal initiatives, we're just looking for a summary here, kind of a progress report.
From me?
Just
I'm
in
not
general.
working on that. Oh, you know what I'm working on? I'm working on the Marshall Home Fund grant. We're applying for $2,000 to pay probably students a $50 stipend each to volunteer to shovel in the neighborhoods. Because according to Pete Santola, the rec director, the problem was they didn't have enough volunteers last year. they had a good number of older people who wanted their sidewalk shoveled, but not enough kids to shovel. So we thought that an incentive would help. So I am working on that with Pete Santola and Marie Gagnon, who's the head of the senior center, and Stephanie Gonzalez.
Bob, do you guys have anything to?
Sure.
Quick update.
Yeah, quick
Just
update
short
on
time.
sidewalk snow removal. We've had 2 meetings now. We're looking at a range of different approaches to this problem. We want to sort of document those, we're doing the research, and the idea is that we'll work with Larry Raskin and his kitchen table conversation group to convene conversations in different parts of the community to get community input and reaction to the different range of options that are done in other communities. See if we can develop a consensus about moving this forward in a meaningful way. So that's where we are.
When's the next meeting,
It's on my calendar, I don't have it on the top of my head.
Okay.
It's the next week or 2.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I just
Holly,
don't.
do you have anything? So, new business member items.
Talk about meeting dates.
Well, I was gonna bring that, I was gonna finalize that next month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So Jesse, do you wanna talk about like the work week?
Sure. So I had some initial conversations with Stephanie after the public meeting, and we both kind of felt like this year we're probably going to take a step back from doing a bike to work week or a bike week event. She's really busy with farmers market. I haven't talked to her too much since then, and we're going to set up a meeting to chat either this week or next week. But we're looking at maybe doing some additional farmers market dates. She thought, and I kind of agree that might play well into our goal of kind of getting public input and enthusiasm behind this plan that we're working on. And so the bike week event just seemed like a little too much for us at this time. If anyone else wants to take it on, they're more than welcome. But it is kind of a heavy lift in terms of organizing the other groups to show up, and we've had Lime there for the past few years, and obviously they're not gonna show up this year, so, and Commonwealth's costs some money to be there, and, Stephanie just thought maybe it'd be better to have Commonwealth at maybe some of the farmers markets instead. So we'll talk about that, or her and I will talk about it, but, that's just kind of the plan now, is to not do a May event, but probably have a few dates on the calendar to coincide and have a table at the farmers market.
I mean, I don't know about Andy, because Andy did this with me, but I didn't find that to be very effective.
You mean the farmers market? Yeah, and I wanna talk about that with her, just standing there, and having something, just trying to pass out brochures and stuff probably isn't as effective. But some of the thoughts were to have like either a kids program, hand out helmets if we still have some, or the kids ride, or something in line with, because a lot of families do show up for those concerts, especially the family-oriented ones. And then, maybe there's just something else that maybe it's more small scale, like we don't need 2 or 3 people standing there. Maybe it's just some information that's available as part of something else. I don't know. We're open to ideas, but
Mhm.
I don't think I just don't have the time for the May event. May's kind of filling up fast, and we both thought that it'd be a good idea to just kind of retool it a bit, or think about it in a different way. We've done it the past few years, and you get enough people or you get some people coming by, but it's not something that has been growing at all. And it just seemed like she wasn't as enthusiastic about it in years past.
Well, this isn't a well-formed thought, but as you're talking, I'm wondering, we've always sort of done these events piecemeal, kind of in sort of a reactive way. I wonder if we should just sort of, I mean, there's certain events that happen every year. And, maybe we should just sort of take a step back and kind of look at the bigger picture and identify all of these different events, these recurrent events, and decide which ones are we going to participate, which ones aren't, what are we going to do, to kind of build a plan ahead of time. I mean, rather than just react every time one of these comes up. There's, what are we going to do for Bike Week? What are we going to do for Farmers Market? So, would it make sense to sort of put together kind of a, an event strategy or something to decide where we're going to commit?
Yeah.
And is it worth doing these events? Like, I think Little League is a great opportunity. That's one thing that I'd like to have, if we do have some sort of an event plan. It's one thing that I think is very rewarding, is giving out helmets to kids. I think that's a great event. So, I'm just saying, we know these things happen every year, and maybe we should just sort of evaluate.
Well,
is this worth doing? Is that not worth doing?
yeah, and that's, that was encouraging to read in the plan. I think in, what is it, in the programs part, there is a bullet about work with community groups to host townwide events to promote bicycle and pedestrian safety, and that's a great thing to highlight and to have as part of our plan going forward, is not just putting on something ourselves, but, whether it is with youth groups or senior groups or,
Well, to your point, I remember, I think you and I shared an article, I think we both saw the same article about, there was this program where they painted sort of these mini streets on a parking lot, and they would train kids on the different rules of the road and whatnot.
Yeah.
And you would, I think at some point you had said, can we set that up someplace here? I think that would be a really rewarding program to put together. I mean, that's, I think, something worth putting resources behind.
yeah, it's just, those take time, so we're looking at like
No, yeah, and
2021.
we'd have to collaborate with the police
Right.
and, yeah, sure.
I think a lot of older adults who are walkers would have some appetite for something that helped bicyclists understand how to respect the needs of pedestrians, because that's an issue. A lot of older adults, on shared paths, don't feel safe because of a lot of some bicyclist bad behavior,
Yeah.
as they see it.
Yeah, yeah, education is certainly a challenging one, and we've heard that, we must hear something along those lines every time we have the table at like Fair on the Square or something, where, how do we get cyclists to change their culture? And it's not all of them, of course, and, it's the same with drivers. How do we get drivers to
Right.
stop fully at a stop sign? How do we get cyclists to do the same? It's kind of more of a cultural change, but obviously there are ways, I'm sure, other communities have tried, and so.
In fact, I'd almost like to expand this in terms of walking safely in multi-use paths and riding safely in multi-use paths. Because just like we have bad cyclists or improperly trained cyclists, we have improperly trained walkers. And they, you'll often see.
They'll wander.
And they'll wander.
Or they're
People I walk with drive me
self-arrest,
crazy.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, you ring your bell or you yell at them and they get annoyed, and it's like, we need to train people, I think, in general.
And the
So-
data that the consultants had was related to the interface with vehicles. And obviously that's crucial, but there's also the interface between the bicyclists and the pedestrians.
And how do you walk the dog?
With a
Well,
leash.
Right, that's.
If you keep the bicycles off the sidewalk, you make it
No,
lot of
no, not
progress in that
even,
direction.
on a multi-use path, people will often walk the dog.
Yeah.
Or they'll try to train their kids
Just
on
so-
how to ride a bike.
Just to wrap up the events thing, if you do have any ideas, for any community groups or things that we can look at that, you know, we think outside of the box that we've been in for the last few years, I'm happy to listen and we can talk them out and stuff like that.
If we could get the Safe Routes to School parent groups reorganized, events around that would be
Yeah,
really useful, I think.
yeah.
But first, we've got to get that all back together.
I kind of like the suggestion here that, you know, when we think of these events, participating in these events, what do we get out of it? And you know, I think there's some events like educational, or you get a lot more out of it than just showing up and, you know, handing out like bands or something. Yeah, maybe an evaluation is a good idea.
Right, yeah. And we've done a little bit of that with Fair on the Square, talking about a bike ballet or something like that, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, it just helps to kind of rethink things and, or try new things and see if we can find.
But yeah, I'm kind of partial to the education part of it. We haven't done a lot of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Maybe we need to have a couple of middle school children come in who ride bikes and talk about what they want to see. And it seems like everything you talked about now all has to do with children. And maybe that's something you're right.
Lot to think about. All right, any other issues people want to bring up? I don't know if people know, but Representative Hecht is stepping down, which I think is unfortunate.
But Steve Owens is
Mhm.
one.
Okay.
See, Owens is running.
It'd be good.
Jump in between.
We trained him well. We collectively, it takes a
Yes.
village.
We've trained him well.
What's that?
Maybe just ask if there
Sure. Are there any other issues anybody wants to bring up? Is that, are we good? Can we call it a meeting?
It's not even 9 o'clock. I
All those
saw
in-
it.
Can't believe it.
All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.